What makes this thing so great? First things first, the price. As far as I'm concerned, the C in Sony A7cii does not stand for compact. It stands for cheap. Since its release in 2021, the Sony A7 IV has been regarded by many to be the best hybrid Sony mirrorless camera.
This camera offers the best image quality you can get for the money right now, period.
Which is true, but the new Sony A7cii II can do everything that camera can do, and more, and it's cheaper. It's $2,200, and I know that doesn't sound cheap, but when you compare what this thing can do to what other cameras like it can do, and the prices between those, this is the cheapest one that can do what it can do for what it can do. It's an absolute beast of a camera for just $2,200. Let me save you some time right now. If you're in the market for a new Sony mirrorless camera and you have a budget of around $2,000, you will not find a better camera for the price. I promise you that. All right, after that long-winded introduction, let's talk about what the C does technically stand for: compact. I used to think that when it came to cameras, size didn't matter. After spending 2 months with a camera bag, you really begin to grow an appreciation for camera size. My favorite part about this design is not just the fact that it's smaller, but the fact that it's modular. You see that? It's a small rectangle. No EVF here, which I like because it's easier to pack. See how it just fits there? Or it could fit this way. You see how tiny that is? Look at that. It takes up barely any room. And it really is a super big mega deal, because when you combine that with a lens, you see that? They're the same size. Nothing sticks out here. It can fit flush into the same width any way you put it. That might sound ridiculous, but it's not. When I'm playing Gear Tetris in my backpack, the fact this thing has a modular design, it really just, it helps, it makes my life easier. Sue me. Plus it's lighter. All right, now let's get to the good stuff. What's inside this thing? I already basically touched on this, but this is essentially a Sony A7 IV's guts taken out and put into a smaller body. So everything about the Sony A7 IV, image quality and sensor-wise, you're gonna get here. I'm talking 33 megapixel sensor for photos, 4K 60 video, and for all you cinematic suckers out there, S-Log3 10-bit color dual base ISO, and 15 stops of dynamic range. All that really means is it shoots great photo, it shoots great video. Now, like I said, all of that is what you're going to find in the A7 IV, but there's some stuff in this that you won't find in the A7 IV. The new Sony AI chip. I don't know how I feel about giving AI its own dedicated chip, but that's where we're at now as a society. Basically, what that AI chip does is it makes everything work better. White balance, exposure, metering, and especially autofocus is where this chip is the most prevalent in what it can do. Sony is already known for its autofocus, but now it's just a whole nother level. This thing not only tracks your eyes, it tracks the back of your head, it tracks your body, it calculates, it guesses where it thinks the subject's going to go. Another feature this camera has, thanks to the AI chip, auto framing. Some people call it gimmicky, which I get, but I quite like it. You see this white box that's following me around while I'm moving throughout the frame? That's what's being recorded. It's gonna keep me in the center of the frame as I move around. It will follow me. It's basically like having a tracking pan tilt zoom camera built onto a fixed camera. The reason people call this gimmicky is obviously just because it's just something you could do in post, but anything you don't have to do in post is a bonus in my book. That's why I like it. Another feature we haven't seen a lot of yet, which is pretty cool, the ability to import custom codecs into this camera. So when you're shooting log3 footage, you can see what that footage will look like with a codec or a LUT applied to it, which is something you couldn't do before until you took your SD card out and plugged it into the computer. And speaking of SD card, that's one of the drawbacks of this camera. Smaller camera, smaller real estate, you're just gonna get less physical features, like the dual card slot. It's not there, you only get one. This is a big deal for some people. For me personally, I don't really care. I only used one SD card anyway, because I use a high quality 128 gigabyte SD card. I've never had to use a backup. I've never had this thing fail on me. I'm very confident that that won't ever really happen. But for some professionals, that might just be something you can't risk. Another drawback, again, because of its size, there's just no room to fit a joystick on this thing, which sucks. I liked having the joystick, but we still have the wheel, which I'd rather take the wheel over the joystick, so I can live with that. Because that's basically it. That's basically the only downsides of this camera when you compare it to other cameras that currently exist. The Sony A7cii is a testament to how far mirrorless cameras have come in the past few years. It's hard to imagine they can get much better than this for the sheer size and price that they are. Who is this for? Well, like I said earlier, if you're looking to upgrade your existing Sony camera, or you're just looking to get into Sony in the first place, this is an excellent place to start with a budget of around $2,000. You're not gonna find anything better. The Sony A7 IV is only $300 more, but this thing is arguably better. No, it's not arguably, it is better. Unless this kind of bothers you, which it might if you have bigger hands. But it doesn't bother me. I'm fine with it. Size doesn't matter.